Literally, what is up, guys? Today, I saw a vid called "Worst Punishments Still Used Today," and that's what we're gonna watch. We're gonna watch that today. We're gonna watch right now. All right, let's just get into it.
Start with the bad and slowly work our way towards the stuff of nightmares. Number 8, the wooden cane. Many countries today still punish criminals by tying them up and whipping them. But just to make matters worse,
Ooh, that's some deadlier types.
it's often done in front of their peers and loved ones. In countries like Singapore, criminals convicted of violent crimes or vandalism can still be sentenced to judicial caning. Here, the criminal is bent over and has their ankles and wrists tightly strapped to a large wooden trestle. Before the criminal becomes a piñata, the cane is first soaked in water for a few hours, making it a lot more flexible and primed for whipping. The man who carries out the punishment is a highly trained officer, trained to deliver each strike with maximum force and precision. After
What? Imagine, like, you're just, please. Like,
each strike, there's a long pause, just to make sure the criminal feels every bit of pain that is humanly possible before the next powerful strike is delivered. The severity of the crime dictates how many strikes the criminal receives, but it can be as many as
Bro, what
24.
are those
Criminals
faces?
are typically left bleeding with deep wounds and permanent scarring, leaving them with a lifelong reminder of the hellish punishment they once received. Number 7, the White Room. There's a room so terrifying that it strikes fear into even the most hardened criminals. It's simply known as the White Room. Inside Evin Prison in Iran, there's a small, all-white isolation cell where the bright overhead lights never turn off, and all outside noise and human contact cease to exist. This punishment begins with the criminal being dressed in all white before being thrown into a completely soundproof, all-white cell. The bed, walls, floors, and even the plate and food they receive are all white. But it gets even
that's that
worse.
insanity.
The guards outside the cell wear cushioned shoes to silence their steps, ensuring the prisoner never hears a single sound from the outside world. You see, the color white wasn't chosen at random. White
what do you gotta do to deserve some punishment?
eliminates contrast, depth, and visual reference points. And since the brain doesn't get any stimulation from the outside world, it begins to create its own, tormenting the prisoner by spawning in vivid hallucination and noises that are not really there. And because the lights never turn off, prisoners lose their sense of time, not knowing whether it's been days, weeks, or even months that have gone by. There have been reports of prisoners
This is wasting
remaining in the cell
electricity.
for up to 8 months, with some claiming that even after leaving, they have never been the same since. Number 6, amputation. Amputations are still used in countries like Iran, Yemen, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia, and are typically reserved for thieves.
Amputations?
For example, in Saudi Arabia, thieves can still be punished by amputation of the hand, while armed robbers receive a little extra, having their hand and the opposite foot amputated. Now, before you get the wrong idea, these countries do sometimes take it easy on criminals and just amputate the fingers instead, which is exactly what is done in Iran.
bro.
In 2025 alone, at least 3 thieves had the fingers on their right hands amputated. The punishment uses a guillotine-style machine, just a lot smaller. Here, prisoners are blindfolded, handcuffed, and restrained. The hand is tied in place with the fingers pointing out. As soon as the sign is given, the lever is released, and the blade
is
slams
so
down on
scary.
the person's hand, easily removing the criminal's fingers. They are then quickly stitched up if they're lucky, and sent back to their prison cells to walk it off. Number 5, castration. In countries like South Korea, Poland, and Indonesia, anyone who's convicted of being inappropriate with children can be sentenced to chemical castration. This punishment typically begins after the criminal has served their sentence, and right before they are set to be released from prison, where they will receive the first of many injections to drastically lower their testosterone and libido. The more severe the crime, the longer the castration period. Now, being injected so often does carry some side effects, but
Wait, what does that even mean? I don't even know what this does to you. I wasn't paying attention.
realistically, nobody cares. But in countries like the Czech Republic, castration is taken even further. High-risk criminals who continue committing heinous crimes can be permanently castrated. From 2000 to 2016, over 84 surgical castrations were carried out. But in recent years, the numbers have plummeted. After heavy international pressure, the law was changed. Today, they still perform permanent castrations, but are now only given to criminals who volunteer.
Who's gonna volunteer for that?
Number 4. An eye for an eye. In Iran, the victim or their family can request an equivalent punishment for their attacker. This means they can request a life for a life, an injury for an injury, or in this case, an eye for an eye. The act of blinding someone as a form of punishment has been carried out a few times in recent years, with the most recent 3 cases occurring.
Bro, imagine you accidentally cut somebody's arm off and they're like, no, he has to feel this pain. And you're just standing there with both your arms intact, just looking at the jury, and he just agrees to that.
In 2022. Surprisingly, many of the cases were very similar. A person, for one reason or another, decided to throw acid on someone, causing the innocent person to lose their eyesight. The victim or their family can then legally request the same punishment for the attacker. It all begins with the person being restrained and having their eye or eyes held open. Acid is then dropped into the eyes, permanently blinding them. The drops are administered.
Who is doing that to people? How do you train an officer or a human being to do such a crazy thing?
By authorities, but the victim can request to do it themselves. Well, as long as they can still see. The injury is then verified by authorities, and the attacker is sent back to prison to serve the remainder of their sentence. Number 3. Pushed off a cliff. This is one of the most disturbing and strangest punishments in the world. In Iran, criminals can still be sentenced to be thrown from a height. Now, as bad as that sounds, it only gets worse. Here, the criminal is taken to the top of a cliff, then placed inside a sack. The sack is tightly sealed, and both the sack and the criminal.
Bro, imagine you're just in that sack and you're just feeling as the wind and your limbs just start falling and floating, bro.
Are thrown off the cliff. But here's the twist. In the extremely unlikely event that the man survives the fall, he would then be freed from the sack, only to be hanged instead. A few men in recent years have been sentenced to receive this punishment. 1 man in 2002 and 2 in 2008. The punishment is incredibly rare and is only given to those who commit truly heinous crimes. Even though these 3 men were sentenced by a judge to be thrown off a cliff, I can't 100% confirm they were actually thrown, since Iran ranks amongst the most heavily censored countries in the world, and this information is not easy to come by. Either way, the punishment is incredibly terrifying and not one you would ever want to receive. Number 2. Capital punishment. Now, I could bore you and walk you through all the standard capital punishments that are used around the world, like lethal injection, firing squads, the electric chair, and hangings. But instead, I'm going to cover some of the most strange and terrifying variations of these executions that are still used in parts of the world. In Saudi Arabia, criminals who commit murder or drug-related crimes can still be sentenced to be beheaded with a sword. Here, the criminal is kneeling on the floor with their arms tied behind their back. Their head is then leaned forward as the person trembles and waits for the executioner to strike. As soon as the signal is given, the executioner swings with all their might, and hopefully...
Why does he draw the characters like retards, bro? It just looks like strange people just having fun or something.
Moves the head on the first go. Of course, this is all done in front of a crowd, ensuring they get punished with severe PTSD as well.
What is that, son? What is that?
And there's China, where execution vans deliver lethal injections directly to a person's front door. On arrival, criminals are apprehended and placed inside the van. They are then quickly strapped down and given a lethal cocktail injection. It's estimated that around 8,000 people have been executed in one of these vans, but the real number remains a mystery, since the program is covered in secrecy. Then there's hanging executions. Some countries still use the more humane method, the long drop, which instantly breaks the neck and causes unconsciousness. This method obviously requires a math formula to get right. Too short of a fall, the neck remains intact, and the person hangs there and slowly chokes. Too long of a fall, and it becomes a beheading, and a very messy and annoying cleanup. But in countries like Iran, the math problem is simply tossed in the trash, and instead, they use a method called the short drop, which is a lot more cruel and vicious. But hey, at least no one could ever say they're bad at math. Here, the criminal is rigged to a crane with their arms tied behind their back and is then slowly lifted a few inches off the floor. As the criminal panics and kicks, the rope tightens, and eventually, within minutes, the person passes out and stops moving. Number 1. Stoned to death. Easily the harshest and most cruel punishment in...
Oh my gosh, I've seen this in person because I was a part of it. I had my sack of stones in like Afghanistan. It was just, I had to kill the witch.
The world has to be stoning. This punishment has occurred in Nigeria, Somalia, and Iran in recent years, with Iran being the only country where stoning still exists in law as a punishment for adultery. The most recent uses of this punishment actually came from angry mobs in Nigeria in 2020 and 2022, and before that, a militia group in Somalia in 2014 and 2018. I'll quickly cover these before I move on to Iran. In both cases in Somalia, a judge within the area's militia group sentenced the women to be stoned to death for adultery. The women were buried up to their shoulders, with only their heads exposed, and then stoned to death by...
Up to their shoulders? So all you can see is just humans with stones about to just into your face?
Militia group. All of this was done in front of the townspeople. The Nigeria incidents were very similar to one another as well. In 2020, a man accused of blasphemy was chased and stoned to death at a fish and vegetable market. But wait, it gets even darker. It's reported that even the local children picked up stones and took part in the execution. Then a few years later, in 2022, a woman was attacked by a mob and stoned to death at a college for the same reason. But let's talk about Iran, since they officially have stoning as a form of punishment. From 1980 to 2009, there were roughly 150 people, mostly women, convicted of adultery who were condemned to stoning, with the latest sentences taking place in 2017 and 2022. The punishment begins with the woman being buried up to her chest, or the waist if it's a man. Officials then gather around the person with stones in hand, and as soon as the signal is given, they begin to throw them. But here's the catch. If the person manages to escape from the hole and...
Why do they all look like demons?
Only if they had confessed to adultery, they could earn their freedom. In the second scenario, if the person manages to escape but were caught committing adultery, they are placed back in the hole for round 2. As someone who's extremely competitive, yeah, I'm beginning to think this might be a little unfair for the women.